Imagine the quiet hum of London life, the familiar chime of Big Ben, the rush of the underground, the drizzle on gray streets. Then, a shock wave. A miracle so profound it silenced the city's rhythm and replaced it with the fragile, synchronized beating of 10 newborn hearts. This isn't fiction, it's the astonishing true story of Amina, a 33-year-old Londoner who stepped into the blinding spotlight of medical history. Her journey wasn't one of planned celebrity, but of biology performing a feat deemed almost mythical, carrying and delivering decuplets. It's a tale that stretches the boundaries of human endurance, redefines the meaning of family, and ignites a flame of global hope born from the tiniest, most tenacious sparks of life. Prepare to be awed by the story of the London Decuplets, 10 babies who arrived against impossible odds, capturing the world's heart one fragile breath at a time. Let us know where you are watching from and what time you found this video. The city of London is not just humming, it is also resonating with the seismic echo of a miracle. The city's pulse now synchronizes to the delicate collective heartbeat of 10 babies, an achievement that is so statistically implausible that it borders on the supernatural. Forget the familiar cadence of Big Ben. Amina, a 33-year-old Londoner whose previously tranquil existence was turned upside down by biology itself, has been the center of attention all around the world as a result of her delivery of decuplets, a medical occurrence that is so uncommon that it is only spoken in hushed tones within the realm of obstetrics. Deceptively, Amina's voyage started out in a typical manner. Nevertheless, in a few weeks, her body transformed into a terrain that defied charting. Her midwives were perplexed by the rapid expansion of her belly, which stretched her skin into a rigid position as a drumhead being stretched over a hidden cosmos. It felt like carrying the weight of the world, but made of fluttering butterflies and relentless pressure, Amina later revealed from her hospital bed. It was like being under constant pressurization. The level of concern reached a point of deep anxiety. There were a number of ultrasounds carried out, the gel was left cold, and the quiet was dense. Then, the revelation came. 10 separate sacs, 10 heartbeats that flickered in quick succession. Amina was carrying septuplets in addition to triplets, which is a biological phenomenon that is almost unheard of in natural conception. It is more comparable to a cosmic lottery win with odds that are vanishing into the trillions. The sonographer reportedly stared, recalibrated the machine, and whispered, "It can't be," before the astonishing truth was revealed. Since that point in time, Amina's life has been changed into a story of bravery and perseverance. She lost her mobility, and she became an island in her own house, dependent on her beloved husband Elijah and a rotating army of caregivers. Performing seemingly insignificant activities, such as turning over in bed, drinking water, or going to the restroom, were Herculean efforts that required help. Constantly following her was the shadow of extreme tiredness. Her condition, hyperemesis gravidarum, was so severe that it made obtaining sustenance a daily struggle that she battled against nausea and vomiting. Food was not a source of joy. Rather, it was a necessary and laborious fuel stop. During the intervals between kicks and contractions, sleep became shattered, difficult to come by, and taken away. Her world narrowed to consist of doctor's visits, fetal monitoring sessions that were similar to the tuning of orchestras, and the overpowering and continual realization that she was experiencing the development of 10 lives inside of her. Specialist staff at St. Mary's Hospital Paddington watched her around the clock, negotiating a minefield of hazards, including catastrophic premature labor, preeclampsia, and gestational diabetes that was multiplied tenfold. The levels of pressure increased on a regular basis, reaching a physical and mental peak. After then, the time came on July 7, 2025, 7-7, a date that is now carved in the annals of medical history. This was not done with a lot of fanfare, but rather with the urgent, controlled intensity of a military operation. The operating room was bustling with over 30 professionals, including obstetricians, neonatologists, anesthetists, and nurses, all of whom were allocated individual infants via the use of color-coded wristbands. Amina was carried into the operating room, which was prepared for the unprecedented. With a deep sense of reverence and concentrated energy, the atmosphere buzzed. As the first little scream penetrated the sterile air, there was a moment of silence. Then someone else. Also, there is another. The announcement of their entrance to the world was made by 10 different voices, each of which was unique from the others. 10 children were born by cesarean section, one after the other, contrary to all of the forecasts that were made. 2.8 pounds, the firstborn, and a fighter. Dawn Elizabeth is a fighter. River James is a surprisingly loud 2.5-pound individual. Sky Amina weighs 2.3 pounds and is awake yet fragile. Orion Thomas, weighing 2.6 pounds, clutching the finger of a nurse. Willow Grace weighs 2.1 pounds, is the tiniest, and has a sliver of conviction. Haven Michael, 2.7 pounds, exudes calmness despite the storm. He weighs 2.4 pounds and has a vigorous respiratory pattern. Kai Benjamin weighs 2.2 pounds and has his eyes wide open. Despite being stable, Luna Rose weighs 2.0 pounds and requires urgent CPAP assistance. The decuplet was finished by Atlas David, who weighed 2.9 pounds and was the biggest. The tears came easily, not just from Amina and Elijah, who were overcome with emotion and fatigued, but also from the seasoned surgeons and nurses who had been there for a long time. This was not only a delivery, rather, it was a journey through the statistical prison walls. We weren't just performing surgery. We were witnessing the impossible become tangible, Chief Obstetrician Dr. Eleanor Vance said, her voice heavy with emotion. We were witnessing the impossible become tangible. There are 10 lives and 10 chances, and they all come together. It reimagines what it means to be resilient. All of the infants, who were all micro-preemies, were quickly moved to a NICU wing that had been particularly built for them. There were 10 incubators that were shining like constellations, and each tiny inhabitant was fighting to survive. Amina, who was feeble but dazzling with the strong love of a mother, faced the prospect of recovery while her heart could be seen stretching across the room to her children. It was the news of the London Decuplets that sparked a worldwide outpouring of awe and surprise. Attempts are being made by medical publications to chronicle the case. Professionals in the field of fertility are reassessing the boundaries of human biology. Nevertheless, the raw humanity is what resonates, which is outside the realm of science. Donations to a family fund offers of practical assistance, and words of amazement filling social media with the hashtag 10Strong are just some of the ways that people have shown their support for the victims of the tragedy in Britain and abroad. Meal trains are planned, and large quantities of baby clothing are sent. A communal hug has been extended to Amina, Elijah, Dawn, River, Sky, Orion, Willow, Haven, Phoenix, Kai, Luna, and Atlas in London, which is an area that is often seen as being impersonal. The incredible potential of the human body and soul is shown by Amina's journey through inconceivable adversity to deliver 10 miracles. This trip is more than a medical wonder. It is a tribute to the extraordinary capacity of medicine. Her decuplets are not only 10 infants, rather they are a living, breathing symbol of hope that defies the odds and sheds light on the tremendous fortitude that can be discovered in the most frail of beginnings. Their tale is only getting started, and it is being written in the gentle beeps of monitors and the firm clasp of tiny fingers. It is a constellation of life that has irrevocably altered London, and maybe even our perception of what is possible. As London's youngest residents write their first chapter, the whole globe watches with blank expressions on their faces. It was the antiseptic light of the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, NICU, at St. Mary's, Paddington, that became the new epicenter of the universe for the London Decuplets. The regular sigh of ventilators, the constant beep of cardiorespiratory monitors, and the delicate hiss of oxygen were just some of the sounds that could be heard emanating from the 10 incubators that were placed in a manner similar to a celestial map and were illuminated with mild therapeutic lighting. Each transparent pod contained a miracle that was encased in microscopic form. These miracles were named Dawn, River, Sky, Orion, Willow, Haven, Phoenix, Kai, Luna, and Atlas. Collectively, they weighed less than a single full-term infant, yet they commanded the undivided attention of an entire army. Professor Alistair Finch, a neonatologist whose decades of experience had not prepared him for this, led the elite team of the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, NICU, through the first weeks of the patient's life, which was a high-wire performance performed by the team. Despite the fact that he was exhausted, he said, "It's not just managing 10 micropreemies," with astonishment and tiredness battling in his eyes. The management of 10 distinct ecosystems, each of which has its own delicate balance, is a challenging mission. Individuals experience fluctuations, and the ripple effect necessitates immediate recalibration for everyone. It became a highly planned dance to provide kangaroo care, which is skin-to-skin contact that is essential for the development of preemies. Amina and Elijah, under the direction of specialized nurses, took turns holding 2 of the youngest children at the same time, their bodies transformed into living incubators, conveying warmth, heartbeat, and an invisible current of love to the infants. Even though they seemed to be little to the outer world, the milestones were monumental. Luna Rose, who was initially dependent on continuous positive airway pressure, CPAP, and weighed barely more than a bag of sugar, stunned everyone by weaning off all of the respiratory support she was receiving after only 18 days. Her tiny lungs found their own fierce rhythm. The night shift members were silently cheering for her when she took her first breath without assistance. Willow Grace, who was the tiniest, turned out to be the most powerful in spirit. She was diagnosed with a small cardiac murmur, which is normal in preemies, and she surprised cardiologists with how quickly it cleared. Her tenacity was obvious even in her 2-pound form as she was healing. She said, "She burns bright," as her main nurse traced Willow's little palm. "She burns bright," the Atlas. The biggest of the 3, David, lived up to his name. His digestive system indicated that he was ready to receive Amina's expressed milk via a feeding tube, and he was the first person to accept even the smallest drops of it. In the staff room, the little quantity was celebrated with a cup of decaffeinated tea as a cause for celebration. As a result of her vigilant and careful observation, Sky Amina became well known. Without leaving the confines of her pod, she would listen for sounds, particularly Amina's, and her black eyes would seem to take in the whole universe. There was a promising activity, a miniature supernova in the process of developing, according to neurological scans. Amina's recuperation ended up becoming its own marathon. Muscle weakness, persistent discomfort, and hormonal swings that were multiplied tenfold were some of the things that were experienced as a result of carrying and delivering 10 children respectively. She persevered through the physiotherapy sessions, however, because she was driven by the fierce love of a mother and the sight of her children arguing with each other. NICU was her most effective kind of treatment. These actions became her anchor, such as sitting vigil beside the incubators, singing lullabies in a sweet, firm voice that seemed to soothe the whole row, and reading tales about courageous small creatures. In the process of balancing his career as an architect with his responsibilities at the hospital, Elijah became an expert in both logistical and emotional support. Amina relied on his calm strength as a foundation. Outside of the confines of the hospital, the phenomenon of the London Decuplets continued to produce reverberations. There was more to Mieker 10 Strong than simply a hashtag. It evolved into a worldwide movement. The family's official trust fund, which was formed to handle the exponential expenses of 10 preterm children and their future requirements, received contributions from every continent. The fund was established to manage the skyrocketing expenditures. Using the revenues from the sale of a limited edition decuplet dunkel, a local brewery produced a donation. Major baby brands provided supplies that spanned many years, including diapers that were delivered by the pallet and small clothing that was arranged according to color-coded tags that matched the wristbands of the infants. The scientific community came up with a twist that was completely unexpected. St. Mary's Hospital was contacted by a group of researchers from all over the world, led by a Swedish team that was innovative in the field of fetal medicine, with a proposal for a study that would be non-invasive and longitudinal. Through the use of sophisticated and delicate monitoring tools, they aimed to get data that had never been collected before on the developmental trajectory of spontaneously conceived decuplets. This information has the potential to transform the treatment of multiple births and micropreemies all over the globe. After careful consideration, Amina and Elijah gave their approval, seeing it as a means of facilitating the transformation of their unique situation into a source of inspiration for other people. A collective breath was held in the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit, NICU, on a chilly morning in September, almost 3 months after their turbulent arrival. In addition to being feisty and loud from the beginning, River James fulfilled all of the requirements, which included keeping his temperature stable in an open crib, consuming all of his meals using a bottle, and gradually gaining weight. He was prepared. Professor Finch himself tenderly took River, who was now free of wires for the very first time, and put him into Amina's waiting arms. These arms were not placed next to an incubator. Rather, they were placed into the unadulterated embrace of River's mother. Amina's eyes welled up with tears as she gently rubbed River's lopsided head. The act of holding one of her children, unhindered, seemed like yet another miracle that could never have been imagined. Elijah put his arms around each of them, making them the first members of their family to physically come together outside of the confines of the NICU hospital. A domino effect was set off by the river's outflow. Within a week, Haven Michael and Phoenix John arrived, and their steady and powerful breathing proved to be dependable. Despite the fact that it was still home to 7 young combatants, the unit had a subtle sense of change. The impossible was gradually disappearing, and it was being replaced by the challenging and promising road of the feasible. The decuplets were no longer only a brilliant medical achievement. Rather, they were developing into 10 unique persons. Incessantly, Orion Thomas grabbed at the mobile that was positioned over his bed. Kai Benjamin's big, inquisitive eyes had the nurses wrapped around his finger. He had them wrapped around his finger. As the eldest child, Dawn Elizabeth maintained her position as a subdued leader, monitoring her siblings with a calm and resolute determination. Amina, who was carrying River for the very first time at home, peered out the window at the metropolitan cityscape of London. This city, which had been witness to her unbelievable suffering, was now holding the first frail shoots of her exceptional family. The road was not even close to being completed. The 7 individuals who were still in the hospital and those who were preparing to return home had months, if not years, of developmental checkups, treatments, and hurdles ahead of them. However, the tremendous terror had been moderated by the optimism that had been battled for. A new and extraordinary rhythm was being woven into the fabric of human existence by 10 heartbeats that had been flickering against inconceivable odds. These heartbeats were getting stronger and louder. The brightness of the constellation increased with each passing day. The whole world continued to be enthralled, as it saw not only the unfolding of a survival tale, but also the beginning of 10 distinct lives that were destined to make their imprint. It was only the beginning of the next chapter, which would be filled with homecomings, first smiles, and the magnificent chaos that was the reality of a family that had been made in the furnace of the exceptional.